Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. We're taking a look here today at Request Network once more. I covered this a week ago, but I keep getting a lot of requests, no pun intended, from my community members, specifically my patrons, so I like to honor you and give you what you need, of course, and if an analysis of this coin is what you want, then I'm all about it. And just note that if you're new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research and always take ownership of your own trades. But just make sure you learn as much as you can from as many people as possible. It's important that you just discover your own trading style. Now, I have a pretty good trading style myself. It works out to about an average about 80% success rate overall. Bear in mind, I do have a signal group too where I share all of my trades with my community members. Link in the description below for that. And I also have a great community over in Telegram, so check that out in your own time. All that's in the link in the description below, social medias, all that crap. Without further ado, why don't we just go ahead and get to it. Let's check out the charts. All right, folks, let's go and take a look here today at Request Network. And before we do, we always look at Ethereum and Bitcoin first to get a baseline of the market so we know exactly what's going on here. That way we can make an informed decision, because any good trader will look at all the angles before they jump right in, right? Because it's never wise to jump into the market without understanding the big picture first, which is why we look at the larger time frames and to work our way down. So we'll take a look here. First of all, this is TradingView.com desktop application. I get that question a lot, so I just like to preface all my videos with that. I recommend the paid versions. I have a link in the description below for a free month to kind of see if you like it. I recommend the paid versions because you get more than 2 indicators present at any given time. If you do this on a regular basis, you'll notice that that's very cumbersome to have to keep adding and removing them depending on the time frames you're jumping within. And I always like to have only 2 indicators present per time frame, but I utilize a lot of different indicators. So just some heads up on that. Also note that this is Bitcoin 4-hour chart, and we always utilize the simple moving averages. Okay, now this is the 50 and the 200. Some prefer the exponential moving average. I prefer the simple moving average on larger time frames. It just makes much more sense. Works out to be a better average, and the industry leaders are utilizing this as well, so why not get on board? Right, so the bulls and the bears and the everybody controlling the market essentially are those who use these indicators. More so specifically on the 1-day chart and the 4-hour chart. Those are both kind of intertwined, but right now at this point in time we can see the 50 is working now as a support level because we got the 4-hour candlestick, the most recent candlestick to close above the 50. So now that's a support instead of a resistance. 200 is trailing behind, don't need to worry about that guy. What's great about this here though is I did mark this earlier, and it's actually holding as a strong support. 44,000 held today, really good. So no less than 12 hours ago we had the price testing 44,000. Now we're upwards of 46.5, and in fact we did pass the resistance level here as well, because on the 1-hour chart this has been tested multiple times. 46,500 is a strong support level now. Again, technically it hasn't closed yet, but we're about 25 minutes in this trading cycle here in this 4-hour time frame, so it's likelihood of this closing above, so that will become a support. The only major resistance now is right around 47,800, or you could just say round number 48,000. Keep in mind there's a really big strong channel here between 48,000 and 50,000 that would be potentially a resistance, because it's a big buy zone. There's a lot of volume there, and that could be a potential resistance. We'll see what happens when we get there, but we want to break 48 initially as kind of the next major milestone here. I mean, same thing goes with 47,000 too. That's a potential resistance, but it's only rejected once here today, and we'll see what happens. All right, so that's kind of the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. Moving on to Ethereum. Effectively the same scenario here, only difference is different time, more so different resistance and support levels. Okay, so all in all, 50-day simple moving average is likely going to close below this candlestick here, so that will probably be a support moving forward. We got 3250 as a major resistance, 2900 is a major support. That was tested multiple times. This should be a strong support level if it does ever come down to it. I don't foresee us having to worry about that for some time though. Moving on to Request Network. Now again, I covered this here about a week ago, and let's see what it's done since then. So obviously it ramped up pretty good. Looks like it bounced off of resistance there, came down and blew through the support, but also jumped back up above. Yeah, interesting. All right, so taking a look here at the simple moving averages, obviously they are essentially traveling way behind. Bear in mind this is referred to as a golden cross when the price action for the 50 intersects with the 200 in an upward fashion. very similar to a MACD convergence in a lot of ways. That's why that kind of causes this knee-jerk reaction. There's a chance that could have responded because that is on the horizon. It could also just be the fact that it went down much lower than it should have because Bitcoin did retrace recently, and there was some indecisions, kind of some fear, uncertainty, and doubt recently because the bears are trying to push the price down to 40,000. That didn't happen, and in turn, the price is able to recover now to get back up to what 31.3 cents. Up from 21. So we got a pretty significant bounce here today. I mean, in one trading day, it's ranged 60%. That's pretty significant. Taking a look at RSI, still under 70, which is fantastic. So there's plenty of room for growth. So, adding to your position wouldn't be a terrible idea, obviously. We want to look at smaller time frames to identify support and resistance levels, but generally speaking, RSI still has room for growth. And as we can see here, we got kind of a bounce there that didn't even intersect. It just kept going up, so no divergence, which is nice. Moving on to the 4-hour chart, let's take a quick look here. 50 is working as a support level, which is excellent. That could be part of the reason why the price also ramped back up. 200 is trailing behind. The resistance that I drew from before at about 40 cents held pretty strong. It was tested almost 4 times, and I believe that was a major support from before. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here, because I know this is an older one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why I drew it there. Yep, that was a major support and resistance from before, but also note too, I mean, obviously that was when the price was right at that point at that time. So generally speaking, for lack of better terms, 40 cents is a strong resistance, but I have a feeling it will likely get broken here soon. The price can ramp back up and test it again, because it was tested, as we can see on the 4-hour chart, about almost 4 times and then finally rejected. But it makes sense too, because right about this time, this is when Bitcoin was kind of retracing a little bit. Right. Also note as well, the price ramped up so high so quickly, it had to come back down. Right. It usually splits the difference about 50% of the way. And what do you know? If you go from here to here and you take the halfway point, it's really close to right there at this point. In fact, a lot of times you can even do the Fibonacci retracement tool and kind of look, and you'll see that the support levels are oftentimes very similar. It's usually about a 40-60%. I like to split the difference, kind of just go with an average of 50% as kind of an eyeball. But when it comes to support and resistance levels, the Fibonacci retracement tool does help with that. But either way, at this point in time, this is now a support level. The resistance, previous resistance of $25. Correction, sorry, getting ahead of myself. 25 cents. $25 perhaps in due time. That would be fantastic for those of us who are invested. Moving on to the RSI under 70, all good there. MACD just had a convergence, of course, yesterday at 2100, so I'll go ahead and mark that. Because if you are new to the channel, or if you've seen this before, sorry if it's a repeat for you, but generally speaking, I always like to look at the 1-hour chart and see where the convergence, intersects in an upward fashion on the 4-hour chart. In other words, when we had a MACD convergence on the 4-hour chart, I mark that. That's what this line is here. And what I do is I look at the Ishimoku cloud and kind of see if there's a correlation. Now, as we can see, if you look at the MACD, was basically signaling to us earlier to let us know that we had a buy signal, right? So had we jumped in when we got in right here, we would have netted ourselves just, say, approximately 40% if we jumped in when the MACD had signaled for the convergence. But had we just, say, waited for the price to jump above on the Ishimoku cloud, it would still be a pretty decent profit, about 30-32%. Okay. So just note that the Ishimoku cloud, if you're new to the channel, when the price is above, it's considered a buy signal. Below, it's a sell signal. When it's within, you're not supposed to invest. However, it's okay to invest if you get a convergence on the MACD and the 4-hour chart. That's kind of my rule. When I see the MACD converging in an upward fashion, essentially the 12 intersecting with the 26, the exponential moving averages, that is an indication of a buy signal. And then I confirm that with the cloud. And if the cloud is pretty much, it just peaked over, which it had done right there in this hour, then it's a strong indication of a buy signal. Okay, but generally speaking, if the price is below, this would have been a good shorting opportunity because the price continued to drive down. Right? So that's kind of the general concept. Again, easier said than done. I know looking back in retrospect is 2020, right? It's easy to identify these things, but as they start to unfold, you can start to utilize this in your own trading style and understand that hey, I need to start looking for these things. And it's interesting when they start happening all at once, because a lot of times when we have the same kind of convergence, just say on the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, then a lot of other altcoins will take off at that same exact time because they're intersecting and having that kind of that reaction, if you will. Let's go and take a look at TD sequential, see how far along here we are. We got a reset, which is nice. We're only at a 4. We're looking for a 9 usually, and oftentimes when you see a count up to a 9, there's commonly going to be a retracement to follow that. But this had reset, of course, and the main reason why is because there was enough time to consolidate the price action. So therefore, we have another opportunity to go ahead and ramp back up. So we have potentially 5 more hours worth of bullish momentum, right? That's generally what it's telling us. Now, is that foolproof? No, not always. It really depends on a lot of different factors. Something we want to understand too is just the fact that the price action right now, I mean, ever since it jumped up there, we're looking at quite a lot of movement, right? I mean, if we look at the total amount of, that's almost 55% in what? That's 12 hours. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of movement. So, I mean, the fact that it could move up is obviously still here, right? That's an option. Will it continue to move up? It's hard to say specifically based on the simple fact that it's moved up so quickly, and it would be helpful if it went sideways a little bit longer. But here's a good thing. Look at this. See, sorry, let me get a little bit better. That's terrible. In fact, let me just get rid of this guy here. We already identified that. This is a staircase pattern that I like to kind of point out. This is what a good bull run looks like, okay? So that's why request hasn't died off yet, even though RSI is up over 70 on the 1 hour chart. We still have plenty of room left for growth, right? So ideally, in a perfect world, we see this price go sideways for about 8 more hours and then expect it to ramp back up and shoot up again. And what it'll probably do is it'll probably continue to try to test the resistance of 40 cents. Now let's see if there's any major support and resistance levels here. I mean, there's kind of a couple, but nothing crazy. I mean, we're already up over this potential resistance at 31 cents. So I guess the next major one could potentially be about 36, 37 cents. So we could mark that. That was a previous kind of stopping point for it. But I think it's more than likely going to break right through that and just test the 40 cents again. All right. Okay, so that's just kind of something to look at. Let's go ahead and look at the 15-minute chart and quickly identify a couple of things. First of all, we always look at EMA and VWAP to see if there's any good indication of buy signals. And obviously we see this as a bit on the overextended side. When we have a variance this large on the VWAP, look at how big this is. 28, almost 30%. I mean, technically we can go down a little bit, just say 25% is a round number. When the price is 25% higher than the average volume in the last 24 hours, that's a potential problem. In other words, there's a strong chance the price will retrace. It explains why the price is coming back down now. This is completely normal. I would expect the price to come down and to potentially test somewhere in the range of about 29 cents as a worst case. But we want to wait until to see how the price responds to the EMA line here, because this EMA is basically giving us indication that the bulls are still in control, right? You can see how it's bouncing off every single time. So even though we can't rely on the VWAP right now with that strong variance, that standard deviation is too high, the EMA could potentially bail us out. So what you would want to do to take entry here, if you're considering adding to your position or taking entry, first of all, I would recommend waiting a few hours because I don't feel like it's going to shoot straight up again here in the near future. Next, maybe 8 to 12 hours perhaps, but it's been overextended for quite a little while, and I think it would be helpful if it were to calm down. So ideally, it goes sideways, and or if it retraces, it bounces off of EMA. So if EMA just continues like this, and then the price comes down and does one of these, then you're in pretty good shape that the bulls are still in control, and the bears haven't. The bears are still conceding, right? Also, bear in mind too, no pun intended, when the price action goes sideways like this, you can kind of get some false positives sometimes. So if you get consolidation that drops below the EMA line, try not to overreact and just close your position. A lot of times it can drop below, like you saw here, as that was testing a support level. It kind of bounced off of it. But generally speaking, for the most part, wait for the EMA to get tested before you take entry. And I recommend waiting on the 15-minute chart because the EMA 15, that's what I use here on the 15-minute chart, is the most effective for that time frame, right? A lot of times you'll see a default of 9 and 20, which are okay, they're satisfactory, but it's a lot of movement, and it makes more sense to split the difference and just kind of use one in the middle. 15 has always been my favorite, and I just had the most success with it, specifically on the 15-minute chart. Perhaps the 9 would work better if you use in the 1-minute chart, but I only really use the 15-minute chart even as a day trader, right? When I day trade, I use the 15. Yes, I'll jump to the one minute chart to kind of identify some patterns, but I make my decision based on the 15, and the main reason why is because I look for confirmation. I need 30 minutes of confirmation above EMA and VWAP to take entry. In most cases, that's how I do it. And if you see here this yellow up arrow, that essentially is telling me that I have a buy signal, so I normally take entry right around there. And of course, you got the entry point here as well, and here too. But generally speaking, this is what my EMA and VWAP notification does. I provide this to all my patrons, of course. So if you're part of my premium Patreon account, where I share all of my signals, all of my swing trades, my hodl trades as well, I share all that with my community members, and I do that, every time I perform a trade, right? And I provide entry points, best practice, sell targets, etc. But what I'm getting at is I utilize what you're seeing here in that group to ensure that we make we keep the success rate very high. I'm about an 80% success rate overall for my trading. And the main reason why is I just use this here. And this is basically telling me that I have 30 minutes of confirmation in the same direction as the bulls. And I also have confirmation above EMA, which is obviously an indication of a buy signal, a long signal when it's above. And also the fact that the price is over VWAP as well is also a good buy signal, right? So we got 2 support levels here plus 30 minutes of direction in the same direction we're heading, right? So instead of trying to swim upstream, you're just kind of cruising downstream, inner tubing, having a good time, smoking, drinking, whatever you want, right? All that stuff included here. It just makes it so much easier when you have this type of, I don't know, this type of best practice, I guess you could say. It's taken me a while to figure this out, but I can tell you that over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've jumped in, callously without looking at all the angles. And that's why I try to teach this here. Look at the 1-day chart and the 4-hour chart. Make sure you identify the simple moving averages, see where the price is at. Take a quick look at the MACD. If you got a convergence on the MACD and you got a confirmation on the 1-hour chart for the Ishimoku cloud, then you transition to the 15 and you're both above EMA and VWAP and you get 30 minutes of confirmation, that's like a golden ticket. It's almost always a guarantee, and you can kind of see this here. Again, when the price goes sideways, it's a little bit more challenging to identify. There's no doubt about that, right? So we got this price going sideways like this. It can be much more difficult, but that's the reason why you identify the larger time frames to understand if the momentum is moving in the direction you want to head. All right. So if you found benefit from this, please go ahead and comment below. Let me know if you have an open position with Request Network. This is an interesting one here. I'm constantly monitoring to see what's going on with it because it's a really cool coin. I'm thankful to my community members for having asked that I cover this. So thanks you so much for your time here today. If you made it to the end, kudos to you. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take good care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.